republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
President Stovall. Here. Trustee London. Here. Trustee Bonnie. Michaels.
Here.
Trustee Special.
Here.
Trustee London.
Here.
Trustee Roscoe.
Here. No need for public hearing.
No public hearing. Next, we'll have the airport report by Trustee Special.
No report.
No reports. We will have public comment on scheduled action items. On the consent agenda tonight, we have approval of the August 19, 2025 village board meeting minutes, approval of the vouchers, an ordinance rezoning certain property, Sugar Grove Township Road District, an ordinance for the special use for preliminary planning and development, Sugar Grove Township Road District, an ordinance for special use for final planning and development, Sugar Grove Township Road District, and a resolution approving transfer of surplus fund balance for 2024 and 2025. Would anyone? I'm so sorry. Would anyone like to comment on consent agenda items? All right. Would anyone like to remove an item from the consent agenda?
If you don't mind, this also includes general business. This for public comment will also include two general business items. In ordinance approving a minor amendment from PUD for Starbucks and a resolution authorizing use of contingency for police department project remodel. And you did have two people sign up for.
Todd?
My name's Todd Smoots. I'm with GMX Real Estate Group. I wanted to let you know, Chief, that I've stopped by earlier this afternoon and made sure they put the stop signs in that you requested and they removed the hedges in the Joel Oscar parking lot. And again, appreciate you directing the groundbreaking over there. And I guess congratulations are in order for your groundbreaking. So it's exciting. During the process several months ago of the PUD, we didn't have signage plans ready yet for the Starbucks. So in the intervening time, they created their signage plans, and we're asking for a couple minor variances to the PUD that were overlooked at that time. And we just want to make right that with you and respectfully request consideration for those variances for the signage. And I'm happy to entertain questions you might have.
Any questions? Thank you.
So just a little background. Todd works for GMX. GMX was the Starbucks. And he's here when Dan does her presentation on community development. He'll be able to answer questions at that point as well.
And Mr. Lynn?
Next public comment.
Okay. Would anyone like to remove an item from the consent agenda? Is there a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
We have a first from Trustee Michael and a second from Trustee Special. Can we have a roll call, please, Tracy?
Trustee Michaels.
Aye.
Trustee Special.
Aye.
Trustee Lundy.
Aye.
Trustee Bonnie.
Aye.
Trustee London.
Aye.
Trustee Roscoe.
Aye.
The ayes have it and the consent agenda is approved. We will now move on to general business. Is there a motion and a second to discuss and vote on agenda item 11A and ordinance to approve a minor amendment to the PUD for Starbucks and actually community development director Dave Marion has a letter report on this item.
Motion to approve.
We have a first from Trustee Special and a second from Trustee Ross.
Trustee Special.
Yeah.
Okay, so the village has received an application for a minor PUD amendment for Lot 8 Sugar Grove Center. This is to address the signage plan for Starbucks. As Mr. Dumont stated, there was never a signage plan included as the original PUD approval. When they came in to apply for their signage, it was noted that some of them did not meet the code requirements for the signage plan. The best route would be to submit a signage plan for the entire addresses, all of their signage, their money boards, their building signage. In an attempt to not hold up the Starbucks opening, staff did approve their signage as they applied for it. So some of the signs right now do not meet the code, but there was a condition that they must obtain PUD approval. Failure to do so, they have to remove all signage and bring them into compliance with the village code. So before you have the sign package that they're proposing. The key things that stand out are the menu boards. They have 3 menu boards. Our code allows for 2. One of the menu boards is wider than what our code allows for, and one of them is taller with the structure that goes over the ordering menu board. And then the other portion of the signage that does not meet our code is the directional signage. Our code allows for directional signage, but it has to be a maximum of 3 feet in height. Their directional signage is 8 inches taller. And then the final signage that doesn't meet is the sign. It is 2 feet larger than what they would be permitted, because our calculations go off of, they get 1 square foot for every 1 linear foot of the space they occupy. So I believe they occupy 36 square feet, and their sign is 38 square feet. The Plan Commission reviewed the application and had no concerns over the signage and recommended that the village board approve the proposed signage plan. This is Starbucks standard signage. Typically this would have came before you with the PUD approval, but it was not ready at that time, so they're here asking for it to be incorporated at this time. And his response is here if you have any questions.
Are there any questions for Mr. Smith or any discussion?
Say the money board or is it kiosk?
Yeah, so the menu boards, there's 3 of them technically. Yeah, sorry, menu boards.
Any other discussion? If we can have a roll call for this.
Aye.
Trustee Roscoe?
Aye.
Trustee Bunny? Trustee Michaels?
Aye.
Trustee London?
Aye.
The ayes have it, the new ordinance approving minor amendment to the Starbucks PUD is approved. Our next item of general business is our resolution authorizing the use of contingency for the police department remodel project. Is there a motion and a second to discuss and vote on agenda item 11B? I'll make that motion. We have a first from trustee Wendy. Is there a second?
Trustee Lund.
Second from trustee London. Community police chief Rollins has a board report on this item.
Good evening. Thank you again for participating in the groundbreaking ceremony for the remodel construction of the police department. Last board meeting, you guys have helped launch the expansion of the police department, as well as adding some additional, and we're grateful for that. One of the things that popped up during the discussion was there's contingency funds in case something changes or goods or services that might come up. And we're trying to keep the project moving forward and streamlined. As a reminder, there's $325,000 in contingency fund that was budgeted in this project. So in our normal course, if something would happen, we would have to come back in front of the board, even if it's $5,000 or $1,000. It could potentially delay the project even longer or alter, some of the decisions that's being made just to forego it. But we would, and it was mentioned at the last meeting that if we could, Works Director Brad Merkel, Police Department Building Committee, we're asking that if its expenditures are up to $25,000, we would have the authority to go ahead and authorize that. And anything over $25,000 will come back to the village board, and that is the dollar amount that's used for what's required for bidding. Anything over $25,000 has to be bid out. The intent, though, this is in my staff report. I will put down any contingency that we used from the last board meeting and have a running total, so you know what's being spent. And anything again that's over $25,000 is going to have to come in front of you for approval. So we have to answer any questions.
I had a question on our they going to be looking at anything that we move to, these fresh, they are change orders essentially? So are they going to be looking at in the capacity of construction administration?
You know, I think that they would have to because they're part of the overseeing the project.
Right.
So we discussed the process. If a change order comes in, it would come from, potentially like light construction or the AV or electrical. It would go to the architects, they would write a change order to be reviewed by the construction manager, and then it would come back to myself, Chief and Brad, for authorization. If it's below the threshold, we can approve it. If not, it would have to come back to the board at that point. But they would have to be involved in reviewing it, also checking that the price is good, like they did with all the other bids.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Tracy, if we could have a roll call.
Trustee Lundy, Trustee London, Trustee Bunny, Trustee Michaels, Trustee Special,
Aye.
Trustee Retzkoff.
The ayes have it, and the resolution authorizing the use of contingency for police department remodel project is approved. We now have, public comment.
So I'll forego my usual disclaimer. Everybody knows by now that I don't speak for her. What I wanted to show you was this. This is a tail feather from a red-tailed hawk. And what makes this special is that I would wager that I am the only person in this room legally allowed to possess this feather. In fact, to the best of my knowledge, I'm the only person in the village of Sugar Grove legally allowed to possess this feather. Because I am part of a very exclusive and heavily regulated group. I'm a licensed falconer. More specifically, class falconer, state permit F25028, federal permit A00346. I've been licensed since 2003, which is about the time that I moved into Sugar Grove. Now, falconry around for thousands of years. Genghis Khan, Mary Queen of Scots, King James I, the Bible guy, they were all falconers. Contemporary falconers are noteworthy as well. A guy named Mike Melville was the first commercial astronaut, also a falconer. The guy who was responsible for bringing the peregrine falcon back from near extinction, he discovered the link between DDT and thinning shells, was a guy named Tom Cave, also a licensed falconer. So we're a noteworthy bunch, but we're also a very small bunch. I think there are less than 200 of us in the state of Illinois. And the reason I'm talking to you is because the proposed amendment to the animal control would basically abolish the art of falconry in Sugar Grove. And I don't think that's necessary. As I mentioned, falconry is one of the most heavily regulated things in the state of Illinois. Title 17, Chapter 1, Part 1590, or we just call it 1590, are all the regulations we have to follow for Illinois. We also have to follow things in the Migratory Bird Treaty and other things like that. But this governs how many raptors, how the facilities must be constructed, and they can time without notice. How the whereabouts of the raptors are tracked. It covers apprenticeship requirements. I had to apprentice for 2 years to get my license. It covers all of the permitting and the testing requirements and everything else. So they're very, very heavily regulated. So I ask that you add an exception to the proposed amendment that allows falconry to stay alive here in Sugar Grove and make an exception for raptors possessed by licensed falconers. And why I'm allowed to keep feathers? Sometimes raptors break, and I'm allowed to use an existing feather, molted feather, to repair the feather. It's called imping. And if you're interested, all the regulations about that are also 1590. Thank you.
Are there any other public comments? Hearing none, we will close public comment at this time. We will move on to discussion items.
have before you a proposed text amendment to the animal control section of our code. This came about, the section D under animals at large. This was a result of us addressing a resident's complaint about dog being kept at a neighboring house. When we went into our code to kind of look and see what was permitted, we realized that previously, at some point in our code, we limited the number of dogs and cats, which is another complaint that we've been receiving, is people having more than 4 dogs and cats. And we recalled this being in the code, how it was dropped out, but we can't really figure out when or where or how. But then we attempted as staff to address limiting the number of dogs and cats, bringing that back into the code. We figured while we were at it, let's strengthen up what animals are permitted within town. That is where this section D was proposed and came from. The other portion of this text amendment is residential chicken keeping. Through executing residential chicken keeping permits, we get a lot of complaints from residents because we required 10 square feet of coop space per hen. During research, we found that this was a pretty large number. We checked other municipalities and we talked to King County Farm Bureau. We came upon 4 square feet was a more reasonable amount of coop space per hen to require. So we proposed that, and in the process, we also added some additional language on the electrical for the coops, to the application of building permit, and then some sanitary language, and then a penalty if they don't comply to allow us to have more enforcement, I guess, if we have to ever enforce it. So before you have the proposed text amendment that staff has been just requesting for you to discuss it, your thoughts, suggestions, language changes, etc.
I'm assuming there's discussion.
Can I ask you a question? So I don't know what actually boundaries of shared role actually like boundaries. So is there properties or large properties that, that have animals like
Farm animals.
farm animals or cows or horses or anything else?
To my knowledge, they're not other than Rosewood Farm, and she has it in her that allows her to keep those animals.
So why is this limited? It's the board. Why not is limited to just residential neighborhoods instead of a certain size, instead of just a plain little village? I mean, if you have a 5-acre property, why would you not? Why would you not allow that? I mean,
You have 5-acre property.
yeah.
We could go that route. My thought was that there are residences in, can't think of the subdivision right now, but they have E1 zoning, very large lots. And I would probably kick in, but if we allow them to have property, their neighbors would probably be complaining.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So is the only complaint that we've gotten at this time, I guess how many total complaints? So there was one about dogs and then.
We got a complaint about the ducks, and we're like, okay, there's nothing really strong in the other states, you can't have ducks. And then we've gotten complaints about, some people having lots of dogs barking. So it's not like we're getting complaints a lot, we just decided this was a good time to kind of look at this section, maybe strengthen some of the language, add language.
I feel like this might be a lot of regulation, to impose just because of a complaint about dogs. And I think you agree with Dex as well. I think Mr. Levy brings up a very good point. I didn't think about things like elk and man. I personally have 2 small areas. It looks like those are okay, but there's probably animals that just aren't being considered, and this could have unintended consequences. So I don't want to cause problems or.
Former trustee, they had pet day. The bills.
But the same token, I have half-acre yard, someone has a cow in that. I was just saying you could have some, so there should be some limits of some kind.
But there is a zoning code that kicks in
There is,
That zoning, 1146, that says you can't have a lot of poultry with the exception of easy pens unless it's A1.
Okay.
So I don't think we need this at all.
Okay. What's A1? What's considered A1?
agriculture.
Okay.
So because those would be poultry, the ducks, they would be in violation because they are not A1. So I would say eliminate this completely and just let our zoning code be our zoning, the rule. on that. Because language that, says only what you can have, you're eliminating, it says domestic animals commonly kept in household pet, as household pets, it's all in the page, these are the things that are allowed, so what about snakes? They're not domesticated. Potbelly pigs, you mentioned, I mean, parrots, because it mentions small indoor birds. You know, you can't, I think this is asking for a lot of problems, or something you don't even really need, because our zoning code states that you can't have livestock or poultry except pets, and we're in the agriculture zone.
If there was like, I don't know what the word is, but, you know, some of them have 40 cats in the house, I don't know if that's considered like cat food. Is that something the county might already have some sort of restriction, like if you're going on to?
I believe the county does have a restriction, and that's kind of where our numbers came from, is emulating what the county allows. As far as enforcement, I'm not sure how the county enforces.
Did you want to pass an ordinance to update the chicken? And take out the reference to the other domestic?
Yes, we could do that.
And we use a range of 2 to 4 square feet, because it seemed like, there was some support for smaller square footage.
So, I have a lot to say on the chickens section. Sorry, I'll let you finish.
No, I just, from reading the comments or the staff report, it seemed like there's maybe some reason to go smaller.
So, I raised chickens, and it's a little difficult to do the code for chicken foods, because one law doesn't, situations, because the amount of space you need for a chicken, and these are chickens that are pets, these are not chickens for food, we made that a regulation. For a small chicken, it's different than for a large chicken. We also, in our current code, do not state how much of an outdoor run you need. So if you have a smaller run, because then the chickens are only coming inside to roost at night. You don't have a very big run for them to go, then they're gonna spend more time inside, and you need to have them more space. And like I said, it's dependent on the size, so it's difficult to write this, but I think that is where that 10 square feet came from, because that was basically assuming, since we have no minimum for the run, for the outside space for them, that was the larger number, and that is for a larger chicken as well. I have talked to Danny at length about this. I think Lombard has I don't know if you got a chance to look at it, they
Yeah,
have
I read a little bit today.
yeah, so they have some information on, how much of a size per hen, which I think is around 4 square feet per hen, if you also have 4 square feet of run minimum. So there's, like I said, it's not an easy thing to write, but we need to make sure we're thinking about all the circumstances, because you don't want to limit to just a 4 square foot pen, you know, for the coop, and no minimum for the run, because then that's kind of an animal cruelty thing, because then that chicken, which is, some of these are as big as some, and if they don't have any outside run, you know, then you're just keeping them caged the whole time. So that's something to look at, and I have some, I was going to give Danny some things I found. I mean, some of them even suggest you have a minimum of 8 square feet per hen for runs. So you gotta find some kind of nice balance on that.
Are there any trustees that are in support of this?
Oh, yeah, you know.
So I think that's, it would be probably then just the no roosters and the chicken coop application.
And we, and then as far as you look at the different chicken coop regulations, I'm not good with just the 4 square feet, minimum on the run. And
Yeah, bring that back.
Trustee Benay, so Lombard has an outdoor area minimum of 4 square feet per hen will be required, and a maximum of 150 square feet will be permitted to both the covered enclosure structure and outdoor area. Is that?
yeah, and if you, that seemed okay, if you look on the PDF that you go there, it's a really nice, explanation. It mentions how much minimum run is required for that too. And there's also like I said, we're trying to put regulations on, one law, or, one regulation fits all situation, and it's not. If you have small hens, and you can have smaller space, you have big hens, you need bigger space.
So since you did the square foot, otherwise you do this 4 square foot, the bigger hen, you said 2 square foot, smaller hen, should you go with smaller hen?
I mean, the thing is you can't tell people what hen they can have. I mean, you don't want to do that. You don't want to discourage this. So, I'm not sure. Like I said, Longhorns seem to have kind of a little bit of a balance because they required a certain size on the run, and then they required a certain size on the coop. Because I understand sometimes having too big of a coop is not good and healthy for the chickens too. If you have small chicken, small hens, and you have too big of a coop, then they can't huddle together enough to get the body heat. So there's a lot of.
That's why it follows the range.
So, yeah, so it's gonna, it's a difficult thing, so, but like I said, I like lumbards because it seemed to kind of do it neat, but I would like to leave it up to.
Yeah, I'll take a look at it and I will draft changes and bring them back at the next meeting. So you guys
Take
can
a look at all the different, sorry.
No, you're good. And then do you guys want to just completely get rid of section D? You don't want to keep any kind of limits on dogs and cats? Not for dogs and cats.
We have dogs and cats on our website.
It's on our website, it is on our website.
Is there, because we, I think, had that.
Yes, it was in there, I have no idea where it went. In old ordinances today, and I can't find one that has those numbers listed in it.
So, I do have a question to legal. If it was passed, it's still active even if it somehow got misplaced in the posting, correct?
That's correct.
What's the limit on the website?
4 total.
I mean, what I would recommend anywhere is to modify the website. It's just make it official part of the code. I mean, we don't know where it is in the finish.
Yeah, I think it happened because whoever we were with before, I think we're American Legal now, online, we had a different, yeah, so I think when we switched, there was something else that got lost when we switched to that, we need to bring back, I don't remember what that one was now, but everybody in my department also remembers that being in there, so it's not just me mentioning things.
Is there anyone that wants to,
It would depend if somebody has like puppies or kittens, or if they're fostering.
So
animals.
there's language on the website too, where you can keep puppies for so many months. I think it's up to 4 months is what the website says, so you are allowed to have puppies for so long.
But, I think that D is, inordinately restrictive on the, types of animals, because there's, all sorts of others, and then what Mr. Lindy brought up, is even outside of this, could be construed as being inside of it, and that would be a whole nother can of worms that, we have to go with. I think somebody mentioned pot-bellied pigs, that's a domesticated pet. There's sometimes people keep rats in a hutch outdoors, so this would say that they couldn't keep it out, just the way it's worded. So I think that we should go. Or chickens, I'm okay with.
thank you. Our next item for discussion is the personal policy. Village Administrator Scott Cockle presented.
Thank you. So this is, was tasked to put together a work from home policy. I have one currently, that's ever been adopted by the village board. Work from home became, more popularized during COVID, and since then it's something that we have, from time to time allowed employees to do. It's been left mostly to myself and department heads to be in charge of that. A lot of staff today has laptops, and we can do nearly all of our jobs remotely. Some have, either in a stipend or have a village issued cell phone. So I went through, I looked at some other work from home policies that are out there. I looked at also some of the best practices that have happened in the village and drafted the attached work from home policy, which essentially allows for a maximum of 4 work days per calendar month, as approved by. And again, there are some positions that work from home would be eligible for, and some positions that would not. It's just the nature of the position and the work that's done. We also are cognizant that we can have our building staff and have so that the public does come in, that we can make sure that we take care of those needs as well. That's why it needs to have some flexibility and allow for department approval. And we added an additional, I worked on this with Matt, we added an additional that the village administrator could, in special circumstances, maybe approve something that would be for more than the 4 times per month, and that would be in an extenuating circumstance where the person perhaps needed to come home to their job more regularly or for a short period of time. But where it fit the need, and then we could keep the person working, and they'd be able to help us out, whether it be like some type of medical thing where they just need to be secluded but could still work, and that would be beneficial for me and staff if we can keep people working that can't necessarily come into the office for some type of reason, which kind of harkens back to COVID. During the 10-day periods, if those kind of things ever come back, we want to be able to have people be able to work from home while they're healthy enough to work, but can't necessarily be around other employees. Maybe the last day of sickness, something along those lines. So that's where some of the times that work from home comes into play. This is the draft. Happy, please provide comments, and then and then we do the next complaint handbook update. We would then add this as a section to the complaint.
We'll not have discussion on this today.
As somebody who does a lot of work from home, I have no issues with the work from home policy, especially since I think it would be advantageous to the general work and employees' work-life balance.
I also love the idea. I think it's important we find ways to retain good employees because they are very hard to find. Allow us more from home. Great.
I'm against it. I don't like it for these employees are not private employees. They're paid by the taxpayers. It should grow. I think it's a responsibility to have them in office. Biggest issues are hard to supervise. 1 time a week from home is a lot. Maybe be once a month would be more open to, but once a week, just that's a lot to have an employee that makes a larger salary being at home and not being supervised. It doesn't really go towards team building as you're working in the office space. Government work is a special kind of work. For those that don't work in government work or private, it's a little different, but sometimes a lot of institutional knowledge is available at a drop of a hat, and that employee is not there. They're not able to contribute as much. There is an emergency situation that occurs, and manpower needs to be shifted within the village itself. We're unable to do that. Just professional development for our employees. You're missing out 4 times a month being at home. Maybe they're not taking it every week. I'm sure Scott's not going to improve it all the time, but there's just room for somebody to take advantage of it and be gone every single Friday for work from home. They're not building on skills or learning from other people 4 times a month. That's a lot. And I don't like it as a taxpayer for the village of Sugar Grove. I would like to see the people's salary that I'm paying to be actually at work within the building as much as possible.
I think our employees, we have to give them some level of trust. I don't think they need to be supervised at all times, but I'll give an example in my regular 9-to-5 private sector job. I left a really good higher paying job for
me, I work better. There's employees I know that don't work hard. You know? So it's dependent on the employee. If you're a good employee, I think it's great. You keep employees, but if you have a person that's not doing, that's not an obligation. Village administration makes sure people do that. Because then people do take advantage of it.
I know that there are certain jobs that work from home are difficult for them to do, like something where they're interacting with the public regularly. If I was coming in to get something from the village, and that person's working from home, and you know that person's not available, definitely see, Trustee Bonnie's on this as well. I mean, I work from home one day a week, and honestly, I'm much more productive in my town hall office, is much more productive than I'm in the office, but that's because we can walk over and, you know, ask questions very easily about things. I also do have a question, I know it's written here, confidentiality. I'm not sure how that works, because sometimes you have a lot of stuff with the village that is confidential. If you try to talk to someone who's working from home, how sure that they're in a situation where, you know, somebody else wants to hear it and then it gets through Riverville or something. But I do understand, retention of good employees, most places have a work from home policy, so I don't see.
So a couple things to that. One, it would be the same, we have to manage kind of home and just talk to people about what they did at work or take documents home that they need to keep them in a, whether they keep it in their bag or they keep it in a place that they can take something home they're working on, and just have to be managed in that way that if there's some, they just not to speak about it and not to cover that, make sure that they will require folks to have to call or schedule calls on the day when they're in the office that they need to. We also have some people that work out in community areas that are out in the open and they need to sometimes take a call in a conference or what have you. So some of that is trust and training and preaching the importance of confidentiality. I do agree about the recruiting part. Something I did not add, that Matt brought as a suggestion on the finance director job posting was to put flexible schedule as a benefit. It was something that until we get through this discussion and get the policy adopted, I wasn't comfortable adding to the job description because we don't have a firm policy on it, so I didn't want to make any promises to that end. I did feel that that could be something that would help, and he is the one who suggested it, so it would be nice to add that. But again, we'll still find and recruit good talent either way. But that is just a top of mind. There's other things with work from home, so the request I get, somebody may have a sick child and need to stay home. If we don't have a work from home policy, they would need to use a family sick day and not be able to do work. And in some circumstances, having them be able to contribute, get things done is valuable, and being able to juggle those things. We can sleep out there if they're sick or what have you, and they're able to get the work done or work in an odd time work in. So that is some other benefit and something that has come up that is kind of a value to the village where we can still keep progress going, but also you know, have people who care for it.
I think one of the points that is made in the eligibility section is employees whose job duties can be performed remotely are eligible. So if it's to be there to greet the public or provide something to the public, then one of two things has to happen. Either they can't use the work from home, and that would be basically supervisions issued to monitor, or they have to make some sort of a workaround where there's another employee available to cover those, you know, routine things where the public comes in and says, hey, I need this paperwork or whatever it is that they're needing us for.
I'm also opposed to the work from home policy, except for if someone is ill or has a sick family member or person needs to be home. You find something in the personal file or personnel policy that says you can work remotely under certain circumstances. In general, opposed seems fairly split. I don't feel like I have, clear, direction on what to bring back. There was some support for this and some not. I don't, you want to ask for consensus for each member or bring back?
Only because there is a current job posting going, would everyone want to say whether they generally support it or not?
I support it.
I do not support it as it's currently written. I would prefer to see the numbers drop down a lot less, maybe once or twice a month, but for, circumstances, certain circumstances as it's listed, sick child or something like that, I can understand. But as it's, generally written, I'm against it.
Yeah.
Same with, Ed and John.
I approve.
More of the
Is everyone for these certain circumstances or everyone wants it?
And John too, I think those are, I think they both kind of describe.
So we could have, 2 days
Do
a
you want
month,
to?
just flat 2 days a month. Or you guys want to have approval for circumstances?
I think I approve for the circumstances.
I'm in agreement, approval for the circumstances would probably work the best.
Me too.
The next item up for discussion is the shared economic development director. Village administrators, how on this item?
Thank you. So, as you know, Mike retired early this year, and given that economic development, there was a discussion at the village board a few months back about the way to move forward with potential economic development in the village. It seemed that there was a consensus to have economic development, but not at the cost and the level that it was funded in the past. So went back and looked at several different options, looked at what was done in some other communities. In doing my research, I had a discussion with Albert, and they had at one point a few years ago posted an economic development coordinator position as the board director, and did not get any viable candidates out of that posting, so they've had their process on hold as well. They went and spoke to a recruiting firm and asked what may have happened. The answer they got was that for this type of thing, they have a lot more success if they were able to post it for a direct level position. They looked at what we were doing at Sugar Grove at the time, and it was not something that they felt like with their budgetary constraints. They're smaller village than us, it was something that they could not fund. So again, they've had this on hold for a while. And then in those discussions with Elburn, we had the idea, is this something where we could pool our resources, work together, and get that director level position to come in and be shared between the two communities. Then there was a meeting with myself, village president Elburn, President Stillwell, and the new administrator for the village of Elburn. We all met together and thought this is something that we could potentially do and work on together. The needs of the two villages are different, but we're both on 47. We don't border each other, but our planning areas essentially do. And also through this process, we brought back the discussions of the boundary agreement. So that will be coming in the next few meetings back as well as we work through that process. But that's what came out of the discussion. So just looking for feedback. The next step would be to look at putting together an IGA between the two villages. If this is something the village board is interested in going forward with, it's a little different than what happens in other communities, but it's not it's something that's never done. And there are times where resources are pooled, whether it's there in instances Park County will do economic development for all of the cities, and sometimes where cities will work together.
Will not have been in discussion.
Yeah, put it together for a 3-year period. You probably have to have some length of time to assure whoever gets hired that they'd have a job for a couple of years, more than just a 1-year trial. But I think, a 3-year period would be a good trial period.
My only concern is if the person was staying on Sugar Grove's payroll, they were Sugar Grove, they spend more time helping us, or vice versa. And how would you make sure that would, that would.
We can discuss that.
No,
But they,
I'm saying that
yeah,
an employee, that person would be
yeah.
work equally for both.
So when, Alburn's village president, was talking about how, especially down south, regional economic development directors are more popular and successful. But so they would understand that our regional director, and then at all times would be looking for things to bring into the region. So it shouldn't be like only looking for Sugar Grove, but only looking for Auburn, like it would be for the region.
But if they're bringing something in, which time they want it, that's the question.
Yeah, often it would, be up to the investors to view all the available lots. Some investors, might be interested in more than one site. Having the whole region would be great to bring into. And I absolutely love pooling resources and working with nearby communities. I think that people in both of our communities would love to see us working together on something like that.
What benefits either Elmer or Sugar Grove benefits the school district as well, so I
Yes.
think it's a shared interest.
I just don't know who's responsible for decision making at the end. If something comes in and better fits us, we agree that it better fits us, but it goes up over. There's no oversight. Who's actually in charge of that person makes that decision? Is it you or is it Elburn? I think there's some just. I would prefer to look at just a part-time person for us to start that solely focuses on us, our town, us alone, to work hard for us and not splitting time with another neighbors to the north, although I do want to work well with Elburn. Elburn's also growing. We will come in probably some businesses that are in the middle of going one way or another. We need to have somebody that will fight for us here in Sugar Grove, bring that to us to help our tax base of Sugar Grove. It will help the school district as well, no matter which one it goes to. But Grove, and I think having somebody that fights for us is better paid than paying somebody to share with another and their taxpayers. Thank you.
I think, it is a good idea, except that Auburn had posted a similar thing and got no applicants, zero. So it would be very difficult for us to find that part-time. But that was sort of the idea, if we could both, a part-time salary, we both, get them half-time and we have
But here's the
double the
we've
salary.
never posted, we've never posted a part-time. We haven't even tried it. I think it would be good for us to at least try it. First, I understand it didn't work for Auburn, but we're not Auburn. We have different things going on in our town. Somebody might be interested in our town. So, sorry.
Yeah.
I agree with that, Bonnie. Concerned about the competition, we have very similar, area, and if something comes, they say, well, where do they go? We want it, Elburn wants it. I want somebody there who is fighting for us, Sugar Grove should get it, here are all the benefits of Sugar Grove, this is why you should be at Sugar Grove. I want to have a good relationship with Elburn as well, but I'm not voted in by the people of Elburn. I'm voted in by the people of Sugar Grove to do what's best for the village of Sugar Grove. And I want to make sure that we have, I like the idea of someone that is just looking out for Sugar Grove with this aspect. As far as bringing things in, if it's gonna be Elburn or Sugar Grove, and it's something good, I'd like it from Sugar Grove.
Yeah. I do understand that the reality though is just there are not a lot of economic development directors willing to work for, it looks like,
Have we sent out? Apply for it? I know Elburn did, Elburn's a smaller town, Elburn doesn't have this big development that's coming
and
up.
if we could save our, that Bonnie was bringing up our dollars for our taxpayers, but half as much and still have an economic development director, wouldn't that benefit our taxpayers a lot if we could save, over $100,000 or something like?
Might only be in half the work.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
paying half amount by getting half the work, because you're working with Elmer, split 50/50.
Well,
So we're paying less, but we're not getting.
But you get a part-time one, would be the same thing, wouldn't it?
Why can't, well, no, that person solely focus the entire time on us? We don't have to worry about focusing on anybody else. Have we had a discussion about looking at hiring another director? I mean, we had one before, we afforded it before full-time. Have we looked at maybe revisiting that and posting it, as a director and looking at comps in the area and trying to put it out for a full-time person to bring back?
I think during the election, the residents were clear, they want us to be very careful with spending. I didn't hear any resident, like, yes, we're spending a lot of money, like, if we can show that we can operatively and save the residents money, I think they would be far more in support of that than, hey, let's just spend more because, maybe we can, like, I feel like this is a good opportunity with Auburn, and if we delay because we want to post a part-time position that we can already see was not successful for Auburn, we may miss the opportunity to operatively with Auburn, and, this is a good chance. It's also being presented to Auburn's board, and, it would be nice to say, hey, both boards are.
I agree that, past director busy. He only brought in 2 restaurants and a creamery, basically in the 4 years he was hired. And the amount of money that we spent on that department was excessive, and we could have given out more incentive to attract businesses if we didn't have that position. So I think having someone that's part-time with Sure Grove and part-time with Auburn, they'll be busier, and we have a greater chance of having an active director.
I think you're not wrong. You had Jiffy Lube, you had all 4 of the places in the strip mall, you had Starbucks, which is an open building too.
So those,
The strip mall restaurant for this in owners.
The numbers, yeah, but it's still brought in business.
And that
So
was
I think just a comment that anyone brought in a few things, I think is misleading.
yeah,
We don't want to say anything negative, about the past economic development director, just, this is a different opportunity that we can consider and save the taxpayers a lot, and good things could come from it.
I personally think we should hire a full-time, I don't think it's big enough. My other idea is if, maybe hire him as a consultant, like not employee, as a 1099, we pay him half salary and they pay half salary. He's our payroll director, it's on Elmer's payroll. We don't like him to fire, Elmer's planning, they fire him. So he's responsible for this.
I think in that circumstance, one of the reasons to do these shared would be that we could get a full-time person and so they could be eligible for benefits. And that would drastically help in the recruiting. I think if we tried to just do that, the consultant part would be very focused. That's pretty expensive from what you're paying. Yeah, you're as a consultant, operating through online money that doesn't have someone on the payroll. That's the way that they do it. They do it a little differently. Is they have a consultant. But there's some other cities that do that as well. But that's different. I feel like it's not consensus on this. I don't know what to bring back to what's
I
happening.
know, so Auburn's board is also seeing this tonight, could we also, it's an idea if there is, support or not from each person, so that we have somebody to go with it. Oppose, support.
Opposed to this model. It's hard to get an answer to the questions that everybody brought up in the present.
In general, I support shared resources. I think one of the key issues is the paragraph on intergovernmental agreement is that has to be very specific as to the, split of the work and how we're going to manage it. I think that's a key area to make that successful, but trying to find this unicorn of a person to hire in at a salary we can afford, I think is going to be an ongoing issue. someone on staff sooner than later. And it sounds like this is not a specialty that has a lot of candidates around.
So we have these left. Would that be the timeline? Okay. Okay, so we'll bring that back to Elburn and we'll see how Elburn's board feels as well. And then we will revisit.
I do have a question. We do have an economic development corporation
Yes,
that is active, and I just wonder if they shared an opinion or thoughts, and,
we do have an upcoming meeting with them as well, and this will likely be discussed.
I mean, I believe some of those members have been through our different renditions of this piece. They may have a, opinion as well.
Yep, we had, just discussed with a couple people, but there was support of it, even some interest.
Becky and I were literally working on the agenda today for the meeting next Wednesday, and that is going to be on the agenda. They wanted an update on this discussion with the board, and then we asked for their feedback as well. And we'll get that, and then I'll send that to the little board.
Yeah, I think they're an integral part of economic development.
Yeah.
I think they need to be in the loop and share their experiences and ideas and concerns.
Right, if there's no other discussion, we will move on to item D, commercial property enhancement program application for American Legion, which is 1271. Village Administrator Scott Koppel will present this item.
Thank you. So there was an application that was submitted by American Legion to essentially have their parking lot, which is in dire need, to be redone in downtown Sugar Grove. It's a $33,000 project estimate that they have, and the CPAC grant they're applying for is for $10,000. The newly formed or newly updated CPAC review committee, which does include now Trustee Roscoff and President Stillwell, reviewed the application, and everyone was in favor of moving forward. We feel that it does the project is in the area, it does fit the application requirements. And again, the CPAP program is attached to my memo as well as the application from the American Legion.
Is there any discussion on this item?
I bring up stormwater, way to do any type of stormwater mitigation, nothing over there. I didn't know, putting the catch basin in and attaching it to the one that's.
We don't really get a lot of complaints of stormwater issues over there.
I'm just afraid that's what's deteriorating the parking lot. But here,
Well, she's toward First Street.
yeah. That just,
Into that when you pay First Street.
okay.
And the sanitary was right down the center of First Street as well. So that complicates matters too.
But the Legion does a lot of nice things for the community, and I'm encouraged that we support this and anything we can do to help with stormwater things. Good.
I'm in support of this for the American Legion.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, I thought we had just what the requirements were. It was for more of an architectural type enhancement than regular maintenance.
Under the current regulations, we had looked at that under the current regulations. This does fit, the rules were not modified to architectural only. I had a similar thought, it does, help it look more attractive and it is a lot.
I mean, did we not discuss?
It was heavily discussed. There was no decision reached to change the rules, instead to encourage it. What we did from the last one, where there was a lot of discussion around the last one, the fact is this maintenance or is this actually improving the situation? So the biggest change that was made was the committee was updated to add both the village president and a trustee to have more policy makers at the table for the initial application review. That was the biggest change that was made. The actual rules, something like this would not be eligible. But there was a lot of discussion about it.
If we come at two, side with the rules, and we made it architectural only, because I understand what you're saying, and it would look nice if, especially if buildings downtown
other than if they were just gonna do maintenance, they were gonna do the same things that are listed here. They're not
Yeah,
adding-
you got a point, if everyone's parking lot's done, we're gonna have to accept everyone's, I mean, I think part of the reason we kind of thought to do this is because they helped figure it out. It is a big eyesore, I mean, you know. But you got a good point, I mean,
We also know any other applications and it's well within the budget, so we can help them with their parking lot and still help another business with their exterior or their facade if they do apply. I think, in the future, once we have an economic, development director in place, it might be worth it to contact downtown businesses again about possibly, applying, and then when we have more than one application, we can favor those. That would, make the businesses look better, but at this time, it's well within the budget, there's no loss.
I understand it's in the budget, I understand there. I understand, and I understand it needs to. I'm concerned about precedent, because they come in, and this is clearly just maintenance. I mean, they're not putting planters or anything in, to upgrade it, it's maintenance. If someone else comes in and says, well, you did it for the American Legion, and it was just maintenance, I want my driveway done, my parking lot done too. You did it here, why can't you do it? What we have is where we can say, no, it's not, we're not gonna do just maintenance, we're not just gonna paint everybody's parking lot. I would love to do this for them, I would, I'm just trying to think ahead of how do we keep that kind of thing from happening, and can we just say, well, we don't think you're as deserving, because I don't know if that would fly.
Let's ask, so Brian, if we approve for the American Legion parking lot, I think we're all in agreement, we don't wanna pay everyone's parking lot. So if we approve it for them, could we go, the next person that applies, could we still say no without any worries about, being accused of credits or having things?
Discretionary program that the board is decided to spend the funds in this manner, so it's.
So we could do it for them and then not do it for anyone else?
Correct.
Okay. Can somebody say no? We try.
Trustee Lindy, I thought the same thing, reading the staff report, said there was a lot of, in favor of. I would propose that we bring back the ordinance and
I
look at
think
it,
so too,
again,
yeah.
especially with bringing numbers
I
on
think
board.
brought that and really fine.
Yeah.
Right, because currently the rules here, replacement or installation of sidewalks and parking areas are, so I mean, it complies with the current rules, so.
Because we all generally like the idea of helping out the Legion with this project, would everyone be open to, approving the grant? And also then after bringing back the ordinance for revision?
Yeah, that's, yes.
Let's do it. Okay, any other discussion? Alright, hearing none. We'll move on to staff reports. Administration Department, Scott Cottrell.
Thank you. The thing to do is, of course, the police station model. Big thanks to Chief and the Kind to get all the IT moved over. That was quite the work on all this phones being down a little bit, but we did get that back up and running. When you're working with AT&T, you're working on AT&T time, and we did our best to get that to be back up and running. So, some later nights and then the long hours for Chief especially, and then also Public Works. We're hauling everything over to the other side of town so we can get started on the demo that started today, and getting that set up, and along with a storm that came in and took quite a bit of their time. So a lot of credit to those two departments I wanted to mention. So that's my report. I'm happy to answer questions as well.
Is there any way to post that the phones are out? And I don't know if there was something posted on Facebook or did it? Okay.
Especially when we know there's a planned outage. We had hoped it would be a couple hours, but we ended up having to get a completely different team from AT&T to come out the next day. We well ahead notified him. He said, this is when we want to cut over. We moved the equipment, we had the time there, and then when you're with a company that big, you just had to
Yeah, I tried contacting the building department at that time, and there was no message or anything like that, it just went to fast busy, so I knew something was wrong, and I was able to email staff. And in the future, we're able to go, we have a phone system. It's a little bit legacy VoIP phone system that you need to have still a server here for it to work. We're keeping that because we can keep our handsets, we can keep using it in an effort to, cost savings. But that is one of the downsides too, is if the police department loses internet connection or a connection back to them, we lose our phones. In the future, we'll be migrating to a system that only relies on each individual office having internet. So there could be an instance that you could still call Public Works or call, Village Hall. So we'll go to that, but there's a cost associated with it, and we're always trying to use up our stuff as long as we can while it's still pretty operational working. So it is in the plans to make it fully forward.
His partner Matt is not here tonight. I think everyone knows, but Matt is moving to California. And we wish him the best. Community Development Department, Daniel.
The only thing I would like to add is that Starbucks is open. I said they're opening soon. They are open.
I think we've all gone through that track. Police Department.
Question for Daniel, how is
Lennar is just about ready to get their mass grading permit.
We have weeds out at least.
They should be starting with mass grading shortly.
Police Department, Chief Collins.
Just as a reminder, this as well as changes, we're going to go stuff municipal, if I'm the library here, to allow food trucks to occupy the space, the parking lots, and the police department would probably have some construction when that comes to, so there's no parking home fast over there, so the goal is to close the road down, so those come out and enjoy them. And I think I've answered the questions.
Can you please explain a little bit about the Secretary of State's comment? He did a survey of the license plate reader blocks, and did an audit of it, and I believe on point 5 that blocks safety showed Illinois data, which was custom to the Board Protection Secretary. The Secretary of those blocks to shut off data access. I know that Evanston had put out something on the 27th that they were deactivating all their blocks. How this kind of thing affects us and our.
Sure. New technology, it's going to happen. There's going to be some opportunities where data you think is protected, including us, as well as for Block has come out and committed to make sure that they were doing a pilot program for federal government that none of us knew about. There was nothing nefarious that was going on. Illinois law prohibits anything that has to do with abortion rights or for information purposes that license plate. One of the entities that was using it was Border Patrol. That means Border Patrol using immigration. They also have law enforcement branch, so HSI. They also participated. They're also local. They're in the suburbs. The data that shared with law enforcement went up those during the weeks. It stays here in Illinois, yes, we have federal agencies as well as the Illinois Attorney General's offices, as well as Illinois State Police. We all have of the yes, School Park, and that was to my knowledge, deactivated their cameras, right? I think about 450 plus law enforcement agencies in the state of Illinois have fewer than spot residents. Also, the competitor is Exxon, has license plate readers, and there's no rule that has license plate readers. They are doing their best to all these companies to ensure that they're not controlling. And every state has similar laws that they're enacted as a program. But they apply everything across the board. States. But the information that we have restore ours for others. If we have an agreement with an agency or something, area, we can access. I feel bad for those that order it on, or if you're a Nancy or you're Tiger City, and right across the state. And you know your criminals or people that are there, if they don't have an agreement, you're just cutting off the data and resources that's available. Because it has to stay. So it's being addressed, it's alarming that it's happened now. I'm more of an work than not. But I think they have good intentions and what I've read is that correctly, Illinois is pretty.
I appreciate that.
Public Works Department, correct?
Have nothing to add except for remind everyone that the ribbon cutting ceremony for the pedestrian bridge is Friday.
And personally, it's not able to attend the library board meeting, which everyone put on the website, all the wonderful things we have going on. I know the force for, King County and what's going on, over there, but I didn't know anything about, the school, they're trying to really, knock out the noxious, the difference between, a native and native plants. That going on the 6th of September. And then there's also, this person is like, orange and identified trees in the fall, program that is going to be in October. Well, unfortunately, they do not hear about the board meeting online.
I just, happy to hear the ribbon cutting for that, Leonard Creek Bridge. I mean, that was a long time coming. We had to go through the steps to get it to qualify for grant funding, and I just think it's an excellent show of different government bodies working together. So I think that we, got the grant to Sugar Grove Township, Sugar Grove Park District, Kane County Forest Preserve District, and the Village of Sugar Grove. I think it was a unique opportunity when we all came together and had property right in the same place. And a long time coming, we decided to do phase one, and we just discussed because there's different parts of the engineering, and if you get phase one, you may qualify for a potential grant. Do you submit it, don't you submit it, timing and all that, but it's fantastic to see it come to fruition after so many years of trying to put all that together. So, yeah, great success of all our government bodies in the completion of such a project.
Let's see, Groom and Groves on Thursday from 7 to 8:30 from Cadillac Road. White Bridge, I think it's gonna cost me a new bike and it's well worth it. Yeah, like Tony said, it was great to have all that collaboration. Watsi's having their grand opening for their automotive building, August 12th at 4. It's a vote. Oh.
Okay.
But anyway, so congratulations to Watsi on getting that building open. It's very nice from the outside.
Jesse Ross.
Me and, President Stoll, we painted a bunch of, pots and donated to a lot of people really helped out with this good time. I'm also looking forward to the opening up, haven't been out yet, so looking forward to getting the 500.
And the Flower Advisor, the beautification and gardening committee is going to grant the paint supplies, but then we're gonna go back to the chamber, motion and a second to enter executive session to discuss litigation 5 ILCS 122C11 and adjourn the meeting afterward as there is no further business to discuss. Could we have a roll call, please, trustee?
I'll make that motion.
We have a first from trustee Michaels, is there a second? And we will enter executive. Roll call, please, trustee.
Trustee Michaels?
Aye.
Trustee Roscoe?
Aye.
Trustee Lindy?
Aye.
Trustee Bonnie? Trustee Special?
Aye.
Trustee London?
The ayes have it, and we'll enter executive session at this time.
We can go a little over.
Okay.